Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is going to be, what is Flakka? For those of you new to the channel, my name is Dr. B. This is Dr. B Addiction Recovery. We are a nonprofit endeavor aimed at educating you about all things substance abuse and much more. If you do like the content, please go ahead and subscribe, press the like button. We got a lot of cool things coming up for you for the rest of the year. And for those of you that have been contributing to the Patreon account, I want to thank you. We fund this out of our own pocket. Look, we have over 10,000 subscribers for as little as $3 a month, okay? You can contribute to this channel. We can get you much more high quality, better quality content on a more regular basis. Right now, we're aiming at 2 to 3 shows a week in series. And we are beginning our deep dive into stimulants, which we just started. Okay, let's get going. What is Flakka? Flakka is a synthetic cathinone, also known as alpha PVP, and it has a much more specific chemical name. And again, synthetic cathinone, also known as alpha PVP. Remember the name cathinone? We just did a show regarding the plant cat, and the active ingredient in the plant is cathinone. Synthetic cathinones are basically this huge market, also known as bath salts, which you know of. Another name which a lot of the research uses, new psychoactive substances, I think NPS. This stuff is what really constitutes a major bulk of the synthetic designer drug market on the planet. Aim, for the most part, has been to reproduce and be able to distribute as a legal high the same effects of things like cocaine, methamphetamines, and so forth. And it's cheap. So all you got to do is make a small chemical tweak to the base fundamental structure of cathinone, the active ingredient of this plant cat, which is a stimulant once you chew the leaves, and you have a synthetic cathinone, okay? During the late 2000s, let's say from 2008 to 2015, a number of these substituted synthetic chemically derived cathinones appeared on the markets worldwide, okay, in the US, Europe, Norway, Japan, okay, and they were available for purchase through the internet or in retail shops, okay. They were labeled things like bath salts, plant food, fertilizer, jewelry cleaner, stain remover, research chemicals, insect repellents, all kinds of names. In addition, the labels had phrases like not for human consumption, for research purposes only, just to really evade law enforcement. Keep in mind, the goal is here to create cocaine-like high and methamphetamine-like high, do it for cheap, and call it a legal high when it actually really is a powerful substance, okay? And sell it over the counter. What else can you ask for that? Like I said, there are derivatives of the main active ingredient of the shrub called cat, okay? And its formal name is Catha edulis. All of this is in a previous video, okay? This is a natural monoamine amphetamine-like alkaloid. It's found in the shrubs. It's found in the shrub indigenous to areas of the Horn of Africa, places like Ethiopia, Arabian Peninsula, Yemen in particular, the country. And it's used there for thousands of years in a ritual format as a pastime for its psychostimulant properties. We went over a lot of this in a video on cat. The manufacturing of the synthetic stuff is mainly, and I believe even up to this day, unless if there has been an explosion of other labs, mainly done in China and India, okay? Cathinone itself is a Schedule I drug made so in the 90s, okay? All right. So we have this drug made its way on the scene in 2008, 2009, really 2010. The predecessor of this drug was another synthetic derivative of cathinones, bath salts, whatever, MDPV. Okay, this was having a lot of issues, and it was Schedule 1 by the temporarily by the DEA in 2011. In 2012, Congress made it a Schedule 1, and so this created a vacuum in the market, and it was flooded with this stuff that we are looking at today, Flakka. Okay. And that's how Flakka kind of made its first appearance, okay? It is a second-generation cathinone, or they called it a second-generation bath salt, legal alternative, not only to the original first-generation MDPV, the synthetic cathinone or bath salt, but also to cocaine, methamphetamines, MDMA, ecstasy, and it was really found to be quite popular, obviously, in poor neighborhoods due to its low price. This is actually where we see marginalized populations being ravaged by drugs and this huge multi-billion-dollar global economy. And that's another topic, another discussion, another day. When this stuff made its scene or its sort of debut into the market, people wanted to obviously use it for its euphoric effect, okay? Why did it become so well known really across the planet? Because symptoms can easily escalate into terrible delusions, paranoia, psychosis, extreme agitation, bizarre behavior, altered mental states, and it caused the condition often referred to as excited delirium, first seen in the literature in the 80s in reference to people using cocaine. And this is really one thing we can say about excited delirium is it is an excessive influx of sympathetic activation into the nervous system. It causes bizarre behavior, aggressive behavior, severe anxiety, severe agitation, violence to self, to others, confusion, myoclonus, okay, seizures, and some of the peripheral signs when you see a person like that is tachycardia, hypertension, hyperthermia, elevated temperature, elevated heart rate, diaphoresis, quite a bit of sweating, secondary to the elevated temperature, and dilated pupils, which actually cause blurry vision, okay? So this is not a risk-free drug, and it started to dominate the markets in the United States, Europe, and Japan, okay? And the very issue that there was such a high incidence of this bizarre behavior, often actually called the zombie drug because of the way people walked, and you can see it in news footage from 2010, 11, 12, 13. This outbreak, the incidence of this excited delirium was so high with the use of this drug in South Florida, which is one of the major gateways of drugs coming into the U.S. and an area of high substance abuse prevalence. South Florida local media accounts started covering the use of this stuff and what was going on. It was truly bizarre, and you can see a lot of the clips on the internet, okay? Broward County from 2010 to 2015 essentially had an epidemic of using Flakka. There was an outbreak, okay? And there was other places that it was being used, okay? So this was Flakka. Flakka alpha PVP was first developed in the 60s. It was being developed to be marketed in the pharmaceutical industry as a stimulant, as a pressor agent. Pressor agent, what is that? Essentially, antihypertensive medication through the intravenous line. And it's for people when they're sick and their blood pressure drops and you have to maintain a certain degree of blood pressure. That was what it was being investigated, and the plan was to sell it off as this stuff into ICUs, emergency departments, the OR theater, and post-op. Never made it, obviously, thank God. when it entered the scene, like I said before, you could buy it in smoke shops, gas stations, small grocery markets, adult bookstores, and as previously discussed, sold as bath salts, plant food, and so on. It came in powder form. It came in crystal or tablets or capsules, multiple routes of consumption, including oral nasal insufflation, intravenous, intramuscular injection, even parenteral, which means rectal. There was cases of that reported. Abuse or use, we don't want to call it abuse yet, but really it is, was seen also in Europe and Japan. Cheap, $4 to $5 a pop. A little bit about the pharmacology. All of these actually, the chemical structures look the same, okay? Whether you are dealing with cathinone, methamphetamines, even dopamine and norepinephrine, these things all look the same, okay? And you can see how easy it is to make the tweaks. And this particular one, as a class, what we're talking about is increasing production in one way or another, different mechanisms of norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin. This one, like cocaine, increased norepinephrine and dopamine and left serotonin alone. Keep in mind, and for those of you that know a little bit about this stuff, dopamine, we often think of that with opiates. Well, actually, things like methamphetamine have a much huger dopamine rush than opiates. And I want you to think of it like this. Large amounts of dopamine can put you into psychosis, okay? Keep that in mind. The desired effects of Flakka was obviously euphoria and a stimulant-like effect, a rush, alertness, being talkative, sexual arousal, focused mind. It would take effect in 30 to 45 minutes. I won't discuss the dosing. Peaked about hour and a half, lasts 3 to 4 hours, and you have quite a harsh crash. So when it made it out into the scene in Florida, you know, what caught people's attention was there was so many incidents of some of the bad stuff besides the stimulation, euphoria, empathy, openness, mood improvement, increased libido. There was major anxiety, distorted perception, severe insomnia. And a lot of that sounds like meth, and it is. Paranoia, impaired short memory, but it was to a much greater effect. But in particular, and there was also hallucination, agitation, seizures. In particular, there was a kind of a what they called "quote unquote" madness attack or excited delirium. Okay, this is a term, like I said, came into the scene in the 80s with cocaine, and you see it often in the social science literature and in policing. Okay. Where people are just going crazy. And once they put them in handcuffs and restrain them, they just essentially have almost like a sudden death syndrome, which is a real thing. And when they do the autopsy, you can't really find anything. This was quite a bit, this was occurring quite a bit. We had over 60 deaths in Florida with this stuff. And if I recall correctly, some of it was suicides. And I don't know if there was any homicides. I can't recall. So here's this stuff with quite a bit of toxic side effects, if you will. And one other thing to note, as we describe these things, keep in mind there is usually other substances on board, okay? And we don't have data where we can say, this is the short-term effect, this is the long-term effect, this is the acute intoxication, and we also can't really say much about abuse potential and, how easy is it to get addicted. We can make those comments clinically from experience and seeing what the user's lifestyle and psychosocial environments like, but we want to be careful in making those attributed statements. So it's, just as it came on, it only took a few months. It was around 2015. This stuff disappeared. And it's kind of interesting. Why? How? It was quite interesting. And the way it did so is in South Florida, Broward County, where people were wishing for crack cocaine to come back. This stuff was so bad. There was a great merging of law enforcement, local authorities, state authorities, federal authorities, and the government of China that put its foot down in the manufacturing and distribution of this stuff. That is working together to achieve a public health measure, and it worked. Unfortunately, since that time, there's hundreds of new psychoactive substances, and that's a term used by clinicians or researchers in this area. And it's a bane of their existence as far as international law enforcement goes and figuring out where they pop up. If anybody, I do know there's a country in Eastern Europe, and I can't recall the name. If anybody knows where this stuff is being used in the U.S. right now, if there's a problem anywhere in North America and or Europe or anywhere else, Flakka in particular, please put it in a comment below. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. It was a nice kind of a poster child introduction into bath salts. If you did like this, please like, subscribe, press the notification bell. Don't forget our Patreon account, and see you guys soon.